got on the phone with him and he let me know he was so disappointed in us and we had absolutely failed him.
Hey, I'm Jeremy with Northwest. Welcome back. Today we're sitting down with our client experience manager, James. A client's frustration can come from many different areas. How do you handle a customer who isn't necessarily upset about their initial issue, but maybe more upset with how their issue has been handled by your team?
That's a great question because there's a couple layers to that. There's an emotional quality and then there's the actual problem. And when someone's coming in with that kind of momentum, it is so important to make space for them to be able to burn that off and then be able to actually get to the core issue. So biggest thing going into a conversation like that is just being ready to listen before you begin to try and solve. And the way that happens a lot of times is just not being so quick to speak. It's asking a quick question or two and letting them share.
How much of that are you really taking to heart when they're in that heat of the moment?
It really depends on the person. Sometimes someone may really appreciate that you acknowledge it and then move on. That's the biggest thing though, is if there's nothing I can do to solve something and someone's simply sharing context, I may really focus more on where we can begin to solve something and just thank them for sharing the context so I understand where they're at and how I can help. And then here's what I can do to be of service. And so we kind of narrow from there. One of the biggest places that I learned to do this, because it was the beginning of our busy season, I just came in and instantly there was someone who was extremely upset. I got on the phone with him and he let me know he was so disappointed in us and we had absolutely failed him. And on top of that, we call him a ma'am and not a sir. And we don't have his tax ID that he needs to open his business and get going. So just came in with kind of just a burst of anger and a list of frustrations, and he shared for about 10 minutes straight before I could even begin to respond to him.
What does that conversation look like?
A lot of listening, and there's a few moments where I'm going, because I want to let him know how we can help, or I at least want to apologize. And as I start to talk, he just keep going, and I recognized this person just needs a chance to feel totally understood before I begin to try and make any of it better. And so he's letting me know how the business let him down, how someone called him a ma'am and not a sir, so they're not paying very close attention to him because he had even corrected them once and they continued to do that. And so he started to unpack each of these things, and really mostly what I was doing was just taking notes and making sure that I could let him know that I was really tracking with him and understood the severity of the situation.
Was that something that we had messed up on our end, or is it something that was just a little more confusing and you had to help him understand?
So that's the funny thing about it, is it was literally just a basic adjustment in how we were going to file for it. We just had to submit a simple fax. But to get to that place, we really had to make some space because he was so upset that to offer this simple solution would almost seem insulting if I didn't take the time to understand where he was at and why he was so upset.
When a problem is handled poorly, it often leaves a person feeling unimportant. It signals to them that their time or their feelings don't matter. Have you ever felt like you don't matter? Tell us about it down in the comments below. Then stick around. James is going to walk us through a new way of listening to understand that's going to make for better relationships at home and at work. How would you advise an entrepreneur or a business owner who's starting up to ask some better questions and ones that really get down to the needs of their customers?
So the biggest thing is when you ask a question, be prepared to listen, not to wait for your chance to reply. So whatever it is, whether you're asking what it's been like so far, or the impact in their life, or how you can help, making lots of space and being prepared to get a lot more than just the direct answer to your question is so important, because that's where a lot of the heart of someone's experience lies, is where they go past the direct question they were asked, and we want to be ready to hear them.
So if you're listening to understand deeply, how are you making that transition between hearing someone and getting what they're saying and fully understanding what it's like to be in their shoes? Is there any secret sauce that you have for that?
I think the biggest thing is just allowing the space rather than mentally going, okay, trying to get 2 steps ahead. How am I going to fix this? Or what am I going to do? Just being there, hearing what it's like, letting the picture be painted in your mind. That's one of the key ingredients, I think, is just allowing yourself to see as vividly as possible what it's been like so far. Almost like when someone wakes up from a bad dream. The answer is simply, it's just a dream, it's okay. But their experience is what you really want to listen for. And the vivid experience they just had, maybe there's no solution necessary, but they just need to be able to tell you about it to move on. So that's really what I'm trying to do, is just get that vivid picture so we can move on to see if there's even a problem to solve.
James, thank you very much for taking the time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
If you liked it, hit subscribe. We have much more content headed your way. If you have any questions for James, leave them down in the comments below and we'll be sure to answer them.